Yeah.
So we are now live. So if everybody
Okay.
can just mute themselves, that would be great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Oops.
For any of the public that's currently watching this meeting, we just wanted to let you know we're just awaiting a quorum before the meeting commences. Thank you.
Marcy, how how long are we supposed to give it according to the procedures bylaw?
We have up to 20 minutes from the start, but I believe the mayor is about to join us any minute. And we will have a quorum then.
Okay, looks to me like we have a quorum. Um, Yes, okay. I'm going to begin by acknowledging with respect that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, and we're honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Sciano nations. I guess I should do a roll call. You be ready to unmute yourself, Councillor Baxter?
I am unmuted. Hello, I'm here.
Councillor Jansen?
I'm here.
Mayor Martin?
Present.
I don't see Councillor Day or Councillor Logan. If you're online, can you speak up? Okay, we still have quorum. Can I like to call the meeting to order then at 2:37 p.m. and look for approval of the agenda. Any complaints, any disagreement with the agenda, or can we have it approved by unanimous consent? I'm going to declare that approved by unanimous consent. Likewise, with the adoption of the minutes of the Finance and Governance Committee of April 19th, 2021. Any issues or concerns about that, or can we consider that passed by unanimous consent? Okay, again, done. Public participation. I'm sure the public's riveted by this subject. Now's your chance. Marcy, how many tens and dozens do we have lined up to speak on this topic?
There's nobody registered to speak. Thank you.
I'm crushed. All right, moving along to 5.1, new business. Marcy, do you want to introduce this item?
I would love to. Greetings and thank you through the chair. At the Finance and Governance Committee held on April 19th, the committee reviewed the Council Committee Procedure Bylaw number 754. From that, we received some great feedback, and staff have drafted a new Council Procedure Bylaw number 1890 that takes into consideration those comments. And we've also done that by reviewing the procedure bylaw guide and for BC local government, and a review of other municipal procedure bylaws within our area. In addition, we are also asking that it be considered to rescind 2 council adopted policies. One is the agenda package preparation, and the other is agenda package guidelines. The policies relate to internal processes that regularly change and based on technology and the needs of the organization. So administrative procedures will be created and be based on the current system and practices. So I just want to kind of go through some of the substantial changes that we've looked at making to the procedure bylaw. And one of the most significant ones is that in a review, it emphasized the need to provide further detail on which items go directly to Committee of the Whole. So land use matters such as rezoning applications could be dealt with at a council meeting, as there is no legal requirement to send those applications to Committee of the Whole. These applications would come directly to council meeting and then go to public hearing, providing opportunity for the residents to provide their input. The Committee of the Whole section of the draft council procedure bylaw outlines items related to the following: long-term planning, policy development, budget deliberations, zoning and land development plans and strategies, parks and recreation and community services plans, strategies and other matters that may require council's in-depth consideration and community input. At any time, council can refer an item to Committee of the Whole to allow additional public input and additional discussion. So another thing was that on June 1st, 2021, Bill 10 was passed that included changes to the community charter to allow us to provide permanent authority for municipalities to choose by bylaw if they would like to conduct their meetings electronically. The new rules will come into force on September the 29th after the ministerial order for COVID-19 and 192 expires. So municipalities were asked and encouraged to review their procedure bylaws and consider making changes to them. And we're not allowed to approve those bylaws until after September 29th. So we have now included that wording within the procedure bylaw, but we've also created a policy that's attached to the report that outlines how we would deal with hybrid meetings. The reason we did it in a policy separate is because it's a new procedure that council's dealing with, and you might have changes as we start going along and trying out this new format. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of the significant changes that we looked at. So we've created a table of contents, dividing it into parts and adding page numbers instead of sections, just to make it easier for everybody to find. We've updated the definitions. We removed any gender references. We've also tried to remove most legislative references that don't require to be in there. We've added wording to include consent agendas, to also the rules of conduct and debate, that a member may speak to a motion twice for a maximum of 5 minutes each time, and added appropriate conduct at meetings. For electronic meetings, we've changed the wording for all meetings to be included by electronic means. Prior, we only had the ability to do just special meetings. And also electronic participation for members. We've added notice requirements and criteria for participation of members. We removed the annual meeting because that's already included within the community charter and does not need to be in our procedure bylaw. We've included Committee of the Whole meeting schedules. So we've also, for Committee of the Whole meetings, we've streamlined for the absence of a chair and added outline topics for consideration. So for agendas for the council meetings, we've changed to a majority of council members present instead of the 2/3 majority to add late items. We've changed items of business from presentations, petitions, and delegations to just delegations because petitions are already included within legislation. For delegations, we've included subject matters that cannot be addressed, limited 2 delegations per council meeting, and that delegations are only at council meetings. We've also included wording to allow for council workshops. So what our goal is we're hoping that today the committee will review these bylaws and make any changes that you might feel are appropriate. We're hoping to actually bring the bylaw forward with whatever changes are incorporated into it for October the 12th. And we're hoping to get final reading of the bylaw for October 25th. And that's it for my presentation. And I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Excellent presentation, and thank you for your efforts on this bylaw. I suspect Amanda gets an atta girl too for some of the effort. So council or committee, I guess it is, if we go through this line by line, we'll drive ourselves crazy. If we do it all in one big lump, we'll get confused. I'm going to suggest that we address this by the sections or parts within the bylaw, and then we can just sort of sum up any thoughts or we have on each separate part before we move to the next one. Hopefully that will provide some structure and we can do this in a fairly coherent and organized way. So unless I hear any objections, I'm going to suggest, in fact, that part 1 and 2 could be done initially. That would be the citation, definitions, and acting mayor. Any concerns or issues on that, Councillor Jansen? Or on the process and all, I guess, since you had your hand up.
Sorry, I have no, sorry, where are you at here?
So in the new bylaw, it's divided into parts. Part 1 is introduction. Part 2, designation of a member to act in place of the mayor. They're numbered sections 1, 2, and 3. I thought we could, if anybody had any concerns on those, we could start by addressing that, and then we'll move on.
Is that in the actual bylaw itself? Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So you start with your package starts with the old bylaw, and if you're like me, you spend a lot of time marking up the old bylaw only to get to the new bylaw and realize it was much better. So it could be the issue.
Sorry, excuse me, Chair. Could
Yes.
you do you have a paper agenda? Could you just tell me what page you're on? Like because as you said, I think I'm looking at the old one. Like, are we starting on page
38
or page 16 of 61?
No, 36 and
36.
37
Thank you.
are the table of contents, and then following, I guess, 37 to a bunch, but not as many as it used to be. 37 to 54 is the new bylaw.
Thank you.
How are we doing? Anybody got anything on the first couple of pages of this? Part 1 and part 2? Your hand's up again, Councillor Jansen. Feel free. 5 minutes max.
Sorry,
and then come back for another 5 minutes.
Hey, I want to hear the dinger. Just Martin quest through the chair, I guess, to staff, but I did bring up the issue of rotation for acting mayor. That this is my 3rd summer in a row, and I'm getting a little tired of doing the summers. So how do we address that, or what suggestions did you make there as far as the ability to juggle that rotation?
Thank you.
If I could,
Oh, sorry.
no, sorry, I was just going to jump in, Councillor Councillor Jansen. So at the inaugural meeting, I presented the thing at that point. So we did have a kick of the can as a council to change those. So it is partly our responsibility as well that we didn't catch that you were on the same time the whole time.
I wasn't thinking about the impacts of being in charge all summer long 3 times in a row. So I just wonder, Marcy, the question being is if we can include some language in there, keep it open-ended enough that, you know, staff or the mayor can come up with a rotation that, rotates, that actually rotates. Just a thought. And again, the same token, poor Michael having to do all of budget 3 years in a row. So some kind of offset or, something. I mean, I don't even know how you would word that, Marcy, but it could just be some open-ended language at the discretion of the mayor. And you guys come to an agreement at the beginning of the year and we just offset it, by a month or juggle it by a couple of months or go in reverse order or whatever. I don't care.
Well, sorry, I'm jumping in again and I apologize, Sharon. You can tell me to be quiet. But I just, as a reminder to Councillor Jansen, part of the reason things got messed up was because we had the sanction, and so the rotation changed because of the sanctions that was part of the rotation mix-up that happened with you too. So it wouldn't normally happen.
I'm not complaining about myself, or maybe I am, but I think that I just presented you a couple of examples of the same people having to do the same things for the last 3 years. I want to resolve that. So however you choose to do that, Mr. Mayor, I really don't care. But I would prefer not to be acting mayor June, July, August next year.
I hear you. I guess my point is the reason it got changed was because this council made a choice to do a sanctioning process, which changed the rotation. And so we should have caught it when we changed it then.
That's awesome. So some language to prevent or to remediate that in this bylaw would make me very happy.
So I think he must like you better than me. I think I'm only acting mayor twice in the 4 years. So I don't know quite what happened, and it doesn't matter. I think the wording is that the mayor chooses that at the beginning of the term, and should you get elected again next time, you'll have all the chance in the world to lobby whoever's the mayor to get the times you want. Mr. Earl, I see you want to jump in here.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. If it pleases committee, could staff recommend an additional sentence to section 3, subsection A at the end of the first sentence along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, staff will endeavor to forward a draft schedule that randomizes the appointments throughout the 4-year term.
Great.
That make you happy there, Councillor Jansen? Good. Marcy? I don't think I can lower hands here, so I'm going to have to ask everybody to do it for me.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to let you know that another change that I failed to mention was that previously under this section, it had the ability that the mayor could appoint one singular acting mayor. I removed that based on the practice that council is currently doing and allowing each member of council to have that opportunity. So that wording was removed, and that the schedule does go to council at the beginning of the term, and they do get to vote on that as a resolution.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. I think unless I'm hearing different, that's the only change required to part 1 and part 2 of the new bylaw. So seeing no other hands, no other interest, let's move on now to part 3, schedule, locations, and notice of meetings. Items 4 through 12, pages 3 through 5. Anybody have any thoughts or comments relating to those items?
Sorry, number 5, help me out, Marcy. Is the election not in November of 22? And yet we have the inaugural meeting first Monday in November of 22. I don't recall, sorry, the actual election date.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I could be wrong, and I should know this by now. I believe it is actually on the 22nd of October, the election. Thank you.
This is frozen. Oh, there you're back a little bit. Sorry, Marcy, you froze there. I didn't hear your reply.
My apologies. I'm sorry.
Not your fault. It's probably my end, but yeah.
So I believe that the 2022 election date is October 22nd. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, October 15th. Greg just looked it up for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
So yes.
Okay.
The change reflected the time change for the election.
Thank you. Anybody have any other concerns? If I could just ask you to look at the wording on the schedule of meetings. Again, schedule of meetings adopted by resolution of council prior to December 24th in each year. It has to be, I think, reflecting it's for the next year. Which makes sense, but maybe some wording to that effect would be approved. Okay.
Thank you, that's noted.
Going once, twice, 3 times on part 3. Anybody have any further comments, concerns, questions?
Mr. Chair, Marcy, I'm trying to find the schedule for committee of the whole. It specifies council.
page 40 over to 41.
It's number 7 at the bottom of page 40, Committee of the Whole meeting schedule.
Okay, so maybe held on the first and third Monday of each. Okay, I gotcha.
So through the chair, we would be putting out a schedule of meeting dates at the beginning of the year as well.
Yes.
The third one we are holding as a reserve date for Committee of the Whole if required. But our goal is to have the first Monday of the month as being set aside for Committee of the Whole.
So only half as many committee of the whole meetings as council meetings?
If this procedure bylaw goes through, that should suffice, I would believe, unless required.
Okay. Mayor Martin.
Thank you. Through the chair, should we not be scheduling them on the first and third, and then canceling them if we don't need them versus the opposite? Like the committee of the whole is the only opportunity that this council has to discuss issues that are not at the council table. Like I guess I'm struggling to understand how we would have 2 council meetings, but only 1 committee meeting to discuss all those issues. Maybe our CAO could comment on that.
I think that's the way it's written, Rob.
Oh, is it written that way? Sorry, I misinterpreted what Marcy said then. Sorry, I thought what I heard Marcy say was that we were going to go to a half of what.
So the
Council
schedule is,
meetings
unless I'm mistaken, and Marcy can jump in if I am, but the schedule would be the first and third Mondays are committee of the whole, with the hope that only the first one would be required.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. My apologies. I missed the last line. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on part 3? Items 4 through 12, pages 3 through 5. Okay, moving right along. Part 4, committees, commissions, workshops, items 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, pages 5, 6, and 7. Has anybody got any comments, concerns, questions that we can deal with there? Michael, Councillor Baxter, sorry.
Okay, I think I heard Marcy say that rezonings would not go to committee of the whole. I don't see that reflected in the wording here, and I'm glad of that, because I think the idea that the only real opportunity the public would have to address a rezoning would be at the public hearing is, well, frankly wrong, because I can't remember any rezoning having a big change or even a cancellation at the public hearing stage or post-public hearing. That's a long way into the process before the public gets to speak to council. And also, they never get an answer at public hearing. Nobody ever answers them. And I believe that's the correct format for public hearing. And I think we need a back and forth at committee, just as we did with the property adjacent to Havenwood Park recently. I thought that worked really well, and I think we need that opportunity if people are interested for every rezoning. So I don't see it written in here that rezonings won't go to committee, and I'm glad of that. And tell me if I'm wrong, please.
Marcy?
Thank you, through the chair. So what I was suggesting that land use matters and such as rezoning applications could be dealt with directly at a council meeting, as there is not a legal requirement to send applications through to the committee of the whole. Those applications would come directly to a council meeting and then go to public hearing, providing opportunity for residents to provide input. So that is how we did bring it forward. It's the committee's choice on how they want to bring that forward. I know that other municipalities have done that. So it kind of seems like it's almost like there's been mini public hearings being held on some issues. So it happens at multiple times. It's council's decision on that one, but I just put it in there because it seems the way that most municipalities are going.
Okay,
Any
then
other-
I move that restriction be removed from the bylaw so that rezonings can go to committee where we can have a good discussion.
So Michael, you probably should be clear, can go to committee or should, or will go to committee.
Will go to committee.
Okay, I don't need a seconder on that. Any discussion on Michael's motion? Your worship?
Oh, I was already unmuted. Thank you. Could I just get, I'd be interested in getting staff's comment on that. So perhaps Mr. Earl could or Mr. Molnar could comment on having every single one go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Chair Parkinson. I wasn't here at Colwood when the Planning Commission process ended, but in other municipalities, the Planning Commission process is often used prior to council in a similar way that this council uses committees. Another option is to split first and second reading. And so for rezonings that were complex or where council was of the opinion that more community back and forth was needed, council could give first reading at one council meeting and second reading at a subsequent meeting, or continue the process of taking them through to committee each time.
Thank you, Mr. Earl.
Sorry,
Worship?
may I just follow up, Chair?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So could I, that's an option that our CAO has given, but I haven't heard a preference. From a staff standpoint. From a staff standpoint. From a staff standpoint, I mean, I guess the reason I'm posing the question is I want us to be effective and efficient. And if we're effective and efficient by having it landing at committee of the whole, then I'm all full supportive of it. If staff think that we are more effective and efficient by going a different direction, I'm interested in hearing that. So I guess I'm just trying to make sure that we have something in place that is allowing the city to be as effective and efficient as possible. And so I'm looking for staff advice on that.
Mr.
Chair
Earl?
Parkinson, may I respond?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, for your redirection. From an efficiency perspective, with a less complex rezoning, going directly to council does have the benefit of time efficiency. From an effectiveness perspective, where it's a complex issue where council could benefit from back and forth with community, then you want at least 2 opportunities in advance of the public hearing for that to occur. That could occur through a committee meeting followed by a council meeting, or 2 council meetings with 1 reading of the zoning bylaw at each. Both would be arguably as effective. If committee is 1 week before council and council meetings are 2 weeks separated, the committee council structure could also be more time effective.
May I ask one final question, Chair? Thank you. Presently, the way this is written, would it limit us to bringing it back to committee since the recommendation, like for example, excuse me, Councillor Baxter's motion arguably fails. So let's just, for the logic or for the argument, say that motion failed, and so that I'm back to the original. Does the original still allow us to come back to committee of the whole, or is it a limiting because it's not within the bylaw?
If I may?
Yes, you may. Please.
The original would direct staff upon first blush to bring rezonings to council. If council felt that the rezoning needed to circle back into committee for substantive further consideration, you can do so at that direction. But should this motion fail, at first blush, administration would bring rezonings to council where they would first see the light.
Which would be less efficient because if they had to go back to committee, because they go to council, committee, back to council, which is actually the least efficient option.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm done.
You're done? Okay. Councillor Jansen?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry to leave you.
I think some of the issues that popped into my mind have been flogged a little bit here, but I do believe I heard someone suggest, and is it in the wording here? Because I don't see it, but firstly, I'm in favor of Michael's motion. I freely admit that openly in public, Michael. And however, I do see a difference, Michael, and I just wonder if we can think about this for a moment. If this is a simple rezone of a single family lot development that they're subdividing, or they want to add a carriage home or what have you, I differentiate that greatly from some of the more, some of the larger developments that are currently before us at committee. So I'd love to see some language. I would be remiss if I said I would like a complex development to land at council for the first time I'm hearing about it. Recent examples, I think, speak to Michael's point, and I think as well the timeline there. It's only first and fourth week, so if it's efficiency wise, we've just slowed down by having it land at council and council only. We've lost a week in there somewhere. I think it's very effective when we're dealing with it at council, and then it very, very quickly within the week, if all goes according to schedule, it's at council, and then we're hearing from the same people again. It's a live issue. It's in our forefront. It hasn't gone away for a few weeks. So I don't know, maybe Marcy or Robert can speak to some of that. I could see simple, if staff identify a simple rezoning application, that be accelerated, but the more complex ones, I would prefer they still land at committee. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. If I could just jump in here, I too support Michael's motion. I think that the starting at committee, moving to council gives us more opportunity to discuss things. And I do point out that when we started this council, we did have a planning and zoning committee that was obviously problematic, even getting it to meet and have a quorum. We've had a couple of what I would call straightforward rezonings where we skipped the public hearing. So I think that we have accelerated things substantially through here. As our CAO pointed out, if it's straightforward and it comes to committee on 1 week, it can go to council the next week, and that's pretty darn quick. There may have been legitimate complaints about the speed of processing things in Colwood over the years, but I would suggest that this council has done a pretty good job of moving things through at a quick rate. So I guess we have a motion on the floor. Unless there's any further comment, I'll ask for a vote. Okay, anybody opposed to Michael's motion to bring rezoning proposals to committee of the whole first rather than straight to council? Okay, that's we're going to call that pass. Sorry about that background noise. I got a phone buried under paper that I finally found and turned off. So my apologies. So we're still then on part 4, committees, commissions, workshops. Michael, your hand's up again, or is that still?
Again, I was actually just intrigued by what Councillor Jansen said. And I'd like to say to staff, if you can find wording that would achieve what Councillor Jansen wants between now and when we see the bylaw again, it would be good to have something in there that sort of weeded out the simpler ones, and they could maybe go straight to council.
And at the same time, let's challenge staff to have that wording in a way that every proponent agrees that theirs is complex and can't be rushed through. So good luck to you on that one, staff. If you got the brilliance, we're proud of you. Okay, Michael, is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
Dean, your hand is up again.
Yeah, just quickly, I like it, Michael. I like your motion, and I like the thoughts. Again, this would require some thought into the word complex for exactly the reason you raise. It'll be a multi-unit, multi-story high-rise that developer feels is non-complex and should go straight to council. So I think some work around defining that into the section 2 definitions would achieve some clarity for both applicants and for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can now move on to part 5 meeting proceedings. That's on page 7, 8, all the way down to 13. If that's the case, have I missed something here, or was there no part 6 in the agenda? I guess there's no part 6. Good. Okay, so part 5.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, but meeting procedures and order of business, I think is that in the section 16 I'm looking at there, 5-minute time limit.
Yes.
Marcy, I thought there was some wording in there about having 5 minutes of a second 5 minutes at kick at the can. Because I don't see that in section 16. I'm not sure if it's embedded somewhere else.
It is somewhere else. Sorry, I'm just going to try and find it and I'll get back on that.
It doesn't matter just as long as
I think it's under section 26, which is the bottom of page 47, which is under rules of conduct and debate. No member shall speak until recognized by the chair. A member may speak to a motion twice for a maximum of 5 minutes each time.
And but it doesn't say in there, does it have does the second time require a vote or not?
It does not state that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So comments on part 5 meeting procedures.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, just because Councillor Jansen brought it up, could we just stay on 16 just for a moment?
Sure.
Section 16.
Yes.
Could staff comment? A member must not speak longer than a total of 5 minutes. When we say a member, are we talking public or are we talking council?
This is
section
actually,
section 16.
my apologies. This is actually applicable to all meetings. So the reason we use the word member is it could be another member that's maybe a citizen member or a committee member or council member.
Okay.
A member of the committee or yes.
And how do we define question? Is question the same as motion? Or like, I mean, if I have a motion, but people have 5 questions about that motion, can they talk for 5 minutes about the first question and then 5 minutes on the second question and then 5 minutes on the third question about on the same motion? Or are they, once they start asking any sort of questions on a motion, the 5-minute clock starts?
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, it is intended for a question. So not a resolution, a question that is brought forward. I'm not sure, I don't have an example that I could give you, but yes, for a total of 5 minutes to each question. So say
So
that
if somebody had
raises a
4
question-
questions,
Mm.
if they had 4 questions, they can talk for 20 minutes.
In theory. Oh, Amanda's got her hand up too.
Amanda, do you want to help with this one?
Okay, so number 16 actually only applies to committees, commissions, and workshops. It doesn't apply to council. Council is under the regular meeting procedures, which is to speak twice for 5 minutes.
That's section 26, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And the bylaw is written so it can be adjusted easily should this turn out to be a problem in the future. Further concerns, Mayor Martin?
Nope, thank you.
Seeing no hand, that's Michael, you reaching to put your hand up to ask something?
Yeah, because having heard the mayor's question,
And my stopwatch is going.
and looking at section 26, it says every member shall address the chair when speaking to any question or motion. So now we're using question and motion separately. So they're definitely 2 separate things. Unless somebody says otherwise. So when it says, oh, and in this section, it says a member may speak to a motion twice for a maximum. Okay, whereas in the other section, it was called a question. I'm confused. What is a question?
Sorry.
Aha.
I know what a motion is. I'm just not sure what we mean by a question in section 16.
Amanda, are you sticking your hand up to save us from this conundrum?
I think what's happened is when we were going through the old procedure bylaw, there were a lot of wording like that, like question or motion, and they both sort of mean the same thing. So we were trying to streamline it, and there may have been a few that were missed. So if you want to put forward something that calls it a question or a motion, we can remove question and just keep motion. It's all up to you.
Yeah, I'd put that forward, that where it says question, it should say motion all the time.
Does that limit debate unnecessarily?
5 minutes is a long time to speak to a motion. But if there's a presentation at the beginning and then we're allowed to ask questions, you're not speaking to a motion. So section 16 in a committee meeting does not limit how long your questions are. And maybe it should when we have speakers like Councillor Parkinson around, but
I may speak a lot, but I don't speak long.
but that's the way it is currently now. If we change all the words question to motion, then there is no reference to how many questions you can ask and how long they can be. But once there's a motion in place, then you're limited to 5 minutes. But usually we ask the questions before the motion.
So your position is?
My position is change where it says question to motion, and I'm happy. And if we find that we need to limit how long and how many questions people ask, maybe we'll change the bylaw later. But on the face of it, it would seem to limit the quality of the discussion if we're not allowed to ask as many questions as we need to. Because if we're not allowed to, then we're left ignorant, and we have to go on to a motion. Does that make any sense to anybody?
So I think what you're saying is 5 minute limit on a motion, and maybe we can do it twice, and questions as many as we want and for as long as we want?
Yep, because that's the only way we get informed enough to make a good decision.
Okay. Councillor Jansen.
So the only risk I see to that is that previous section there covers commissions and workshops and subcommittees and stuff like that. And conceivably, if there's no motion on the floor, then nothing applies. And I think that's by limiting us to that motion language. Maybe Marcy can speak to that, but I see why it's a little more open-ended for committee of the whole and other committees and workshop. Like, for instance, if we get together for a workshop, does that mean there has to be a motion? But if there's a motion, that means you're taking a decision, when really it could be a workshop where we're just learning. So I don't know how it all fits together.
So just for clarity again, you're comfortable with the 5 minutes once or twice on a motion, but would like to have more freedom on questions. But I think maybe we're hearing some reluctance on, could there be a whole bunch of questions at 5 minutes a pop that would go on forever and ever? Would that summarize your position more or less?
I think we're just painting ourselves into a bit of a corner. If we leave it open-ended with the flavor being a 5 minute go at it. I think that's, the question motion thing. What if there is no motion? What if it's again, think of a council workshop, there's not going to be a motion when, you know, we're not deciding anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure this applies to workshops. Councillor Baxter, are you looking to chime in some more?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I actually, when the last time we talked about this, I sat down and listened to some meetings, and I actually timed everybody's speech because being an engineer, I don't want to apply a solution if there's no problem. I found that nobody spoke as much as 5 minutes ever. I never came across that. And if you added up all their speech, it didn't add up to a huge amount more than 5 minutes anyway. And in any case, there's always a backstop. A chair can always say, you know, we're getting away from the subject. We need to cut off discussion and put a motion on the floor. You know, we need to cut off this general discussion. And unless somebody's got a motion on the floor, then we need to move on. That's within the power of a chair.
Thank you. Mayor Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm supportive of what Councillor Baxter is saying. Just using the example of the CRD in the committees, the chair always asks, we're going to do questions first, and the questions go as long as people want. And then when the questions have sort of worn out and there's no more questions to be asked, then the chair looks for a motion. And then the motion limits the people's ability to like grandstand and to talk more than past the 5 minutes. So I'm actually really supportive of the idea that we change the word from question to motion. And then the mechanism that we can use as a committee is that if somebody just continually asks questions, somebody can make a motion. And then that will be the limiting factor to controlling how many questions are asked, because finally there's a question in place or a motion in place. And then that person who's been taking up too much time will finally be given 5 more minutes to do whatever they need to do, and then the committee can move on. So very supportive of the idea of having it as a 5-minute tightness on the motion part, but leaving it open so that we do get the answers to the questions and not wanting to be looking at a clock to find out where those answers are. Thank you.
Mayor Martin. Would that be the consensus of the council members present? It looks like I'm getting a nod from Michael and a scratch ahead from Dean. So if staff could take that latest from the mayor, I think that summed up where we are on this one. And just as a last one, I must confess, I find breaking down complex issues into a number of smaller ones and asking questions on perhaps, I know some of you will say minute details, but some of the details to sort of home in on what's really going on is useful to me. So I like the idea of having multiple questions when appropriate, and I'll try and keep them short. And the time limit on the motions is appropriate. Staff, is that clear? Good enough direction for you?
Yes, thank you very much. We'll make those changes before it comes back to council.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
I do believe we're now finally moving on to part 5 meeting procedures. Items 18 through 31. Does anybody have comments there? Dean, Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I made a note here under public participation, section 25. I like all of that. The time limit of 2 minutes. Here's my thoughts. I think that if we include some language in there that I'm just thinking of a busy meeting like we had the other night, and we did 4 minutes. You know, perhaps we should have only done 2, but 4 minutes seemed to suffice for everybody. But I'm just thinking if some language that opens it up, Marcy, at the chair's discretion. I'm thinking of, for instance, if we have one person that signs up for public participation, it seems a little draconian to chop them off at the legs after 2 minutes when really there's no one in line behind them. Can we add something like that, or how about, I'm happy to make a motion if that helps for orderliness, Mr. Chair, but maybe staff can speak to that, and if I need to, I'll frame a motion.
Thank you. Marcy, you want to respond to that?
Thank you through the chair. So we do have a 20-minute allotment for public participation. So it really is up to the chair of the meeting if they would like them. I mean, we do have each participant is granted up to 2 minutes and can be extended for 2 minutes. I mean, we could add some wording in there to leave it up to the discretion of the chair, dependent on the amount of people that are participating. And I know we've done that in the past. It worked great. You had 20 minutes allotted, so I can't remember which meeting it was. 5 minutes was given to each person, which not necessarily they're going to use the whole 5 minutes, but as long as we're not exceeding the 20 minutes.
Right. So I love the intent, and I personally would like to see some language in there that puts it at the chair's discretion so that we're not getting complaints that we allowed, you know, Mrs. Smith to speak for 3 minutes somewhere down the line. If you know what I'm thinking here, you know, people do read these bylaws and hold us to account. So just some discretion of the chair. The chair might decide 1 minute if there's 20 people lined up. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I see Mr. Earl has his hand up. I think that's new. Do you want to chime in, Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. There is some risk to making it the discretion of the chair. If the way subsection 25A3 second sentence is written, speaking times may be extended for an additional 2 minutes upon a majority of members present. The chair could use unanimous consent, a unanimous consent approach to change 2 minutes to 1 minute to 4 minutes to 5 minutes. If it's written as the discretion of the chair and someone accuses the chair of having a position or biased on the issue, then there could be conflict. Whereas if it's the discretion of the group, you protect yourselves from that.
So I don't mind that. The only thing I was thinking is it could take us that extra 2 minutes to have a vote if someone does object. So then we just wasted 2 more minutes out of 20-minute public participation. I think the risk to the chair is minimal. I think the issue of bias is minimal. I think the bias is in reverse. If we're chopping people off at 1 minute and 59 seconds, I think that there's more risk to bias there. So I like that language. I just would like to see it open up a little bit. And I'm thinking not limiting discussion, but managing large volumes of people is the way I'm looking at this. So I'll leave that thought with you.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Mayor Martin?
Thank you. I'll stay on 25 just because we're talking about 25, but I do actually have some comments about section 19 as well. I'm struggling. I totally understand the first line, public participation must be related to agenda items for the meeting. Very much appreciate that and stay on that. But I also struggle with it and struggling just how do people share information with council if it's not on the agenda? And I'm just thinking about, you know, even something good news, you know, that you know, West Shore Park and Rec wants to come and just tell us that they got an extra $100,000 or something, and they're just going to do it during public participation. But I don't have an agenda item, but I would like to get a comment. And I understand that we could do it through delegations, but it feels, I just worry that the public doesn't have an opportunity to just come and talk to council to say, I don't like dogs walking on the beach. Like, unless I get an agenda item that says, you know, we're talking about dogs walking on the beach. So I guess that's just what, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it this way. It's just my one concern about making sure we have enough process in place that empowers the public to get in front of the council to actually speak about it. And that's my only flag. And if there's creative ways that we can do that outside the delegation, I'm supportive of it, but that's just what my one concern is. I see other hands up, Chair. So if we're staying on this topic, I'm happy have you come back to me to talk about section 19. So I'll leave it to you.
I'll make sure you get another opportunity, Mayor. And I
Thank you.
agree with you. I think perhaps some language along, priority will be given to people addressing items on the current agenda. And that way, if we've got people who want to talk about other things and nobody else filling the time, they should be free to do it. So I share your concern. But let's hear what the others have to say. Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, I was going to say almost exactly what you've just said, Councillor Parkinson, that the speakers who wish to speak to an item on the agenda speak first, and speakers with non-agenda items speak next if there's any time left.
Anything good?
Councillor Jansen, do you want to pipe in?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, Mr. Chairperson, and to the Mayor as well. Can I suggest that we maybe extract section 25 and speak to that, because we may have to go through that line by line, and perhaps we can speak to the rest of this, en masse, and then come back to this, because I do have a lot of thoughts on that. That was my addition, and I'm passionate about it, because I do believe that, I have some thoughts, so I'll leave it at your discretion, Mr. Chair, if we're going to come back to this or not.
So I'd be happy to flog 25. I think we're in the middle of it now. Why don't we just focus on 25, get it happy, see what we do with part 5.
My thoughts is I think we eat up a lot of public participation time with stuff that does not relate to the agenda. It may be things that are great news. There's other ways to share that. Bottom line is I'm there to hear what they have to say about the agenda item, so I can be prepared, possibly offer comment or my thoughts, or in a manner that relates to what their comments are. I think this sucks up a lot of time. I'm sorry, but I can give lots of examples, but I think the most recent example of the development application that's underway, and we've been listening to people for months, and I've had no frame of reference to regard those comments whatsoever. If it relates to the agenda that I have in hand, that I've received at my door, I've reviewed, I have contemplated that specific item, and I can then process what these people have brought forth in public participation, because there's a relationship. I believe I'm in a far stronger position to take a competent position on that. If it's just something random, I'm sorry, but in this day and age, for all of us, we get emails every single day. I know I do, and I'm sure the rest of you do as well. You can send an email to us en masse. You can write a letter. I got one just today, in fact. You can drop in at City Hall and pass a note. There's so many different ways to share information with us. And I think this is left over, from the dawn of the dinosaurs, where people didn't have all these mechanisms and they had to take the horse and carriage up to City Hall to make a presentation to us. I think we've gone way beyond this. And now our agendas are so packed with very complex items. I do want to consider what's in my agenda for that night, and do so with people who care, that have taken the time to show up to speak to that agenda. Those are my thoughts. I'm passionate about this, and I believe this is very consistent with what most other communities do, is some language like this. It's actually unheard of from the bylaws, procedures bylaws I've read, to have something random and open-ended like this, where people can speak on any issue. We're the exception, not the rule, is my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Baxter.
Oh, my hand's still up. I thought Councillor Jansen's speech was really good, and he's won me over to his side.
So I have to confess on this, I'm not there yet. I hear what Councillor Jansen has to say. I haven't been dissuaded by the reams and reams of people coming with an issue that they're passionate about and hasn't actually reached us yet. I think that's good background information for me. So I'd be quite happy to spend 20 minutes listening to what our citizens have to say to us. I like the idea of focusing it. If it's on tonight's agenda, it gets priority. But if we, somebody comes in and wants to talk about, as you said, dogs on the beach, and it's not on the agenda, and nobody else has anything to say, I'd be embarrassed to send them home myself. So I guess let's make a decision here. What do we think? I think I have Mayor Martin. Go ahead.
Excuse me, I wasn't unmuted. I would be interested in hearing from staff just about procedurally what has happened in other jurisdictions, and how would we advance, as Councillor Jansen has talked about. Do we have the proper procedures in place that, let's just use, people want to talk about dogs walking on the beach. What would be their procedure to get in front of council to share their thoughts with us? If 25 passed the way it's written presently.
Hey, who wants that one? Marcy.
I'll take a kick at it.
Had a girl.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So they could take the steps of actually coming as a delegation if they wanted to. We also have recently, due to COVID, we have allowed written submissions to be attached to the agenda up till noon on the day of a meeting. And there's no criteria on what gets submitted. It doesn't necessarily have to be what's on the agenda. So there are other mechanisms. It's really going to be a council decision at the end of the day on what you feel works best for you. And then keep in mind, this is in our procedure bylaw, so for future councils as well. It's up to council on how they want to decide to deal with it. There could be another option too of perhaps maybe a couple of meetings a year or something like that. We have a new section added in there, maybe an open public participation where it can be about anything and everything. That's a possibility too. That was not put in there, but if that's something that council would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think I'm going to close discussion on this item. And frankly, I do so because I think, sorry, I have car keys in my pocket. I do so because I think we're split, and let's wait. Maybe we'll have 7 members when this hits the council table. I think I'm hearing 2 people at least say no, only what's on the agenda. We have myself, and I'm not sure, maybe one other saying no. If there's time, we should allow others to speak. Will the rest of the committee grant me that suggestion? That we just leave it as is and hash it out when we have a more fulsome attendance? Okay, I'm getting enough thumbs up, Dean. That okay. All right. So let's call that the end of number 25, and that still leaves us with 18 through 31 for discussion. And I'm going to go to you first, Mayor.
Thank you. So section 19, and I don't have a strong opinion on this, but I wanted to flag for the committee so the committee can have some input on it. First of all, 2 members of council may participate electronically in a meeting. To be honest, one of my suggestions would be that we take out that number because A2 basically states a majority of the members of council are physically present. And I just think as long as we have the majority in chambers, the numbers can, like, if council has 4 people in chambers, I'm comfortable with letting 3 people be electronically. So I don't know if we necessarily need to say that it can only be 2. But the one thing that I would like us to discuss at least is, as a mayor, how would I control this from picking who gets to be the 2 or the 3? So if I have 4 people, 4 council members stating that they would wish to attend this next meeting electronically, how do we determine which 2 get to do it? And then as well, I'm just using this, and I would like to make sure that there's a process in place that the same counselor can't just always attend electronically. That there's that there's a counselor who just never shows up ever and just attends electronically all the time. How do I limit that as a mayor, or as a council? How would we control that? So I don't know if there's been any thought from a staff standpoint on that. And then, yeah, those are my two main issues. So I would be interested in hearing from committee about those issues and even some staff input on how I would control that.
Thoughts, Councillor Baxter, Councillor Jansen?
Well, if I may, yeah, I think that's a real problem you've raised, Your Worship. And I had imagined, assumed that one would only participate electronically if one was out of town. So I'd be happy to see it limited to that, unless anybody can think of another reasonable situation when someone should be allowed to participate electronically.
You have a head cold and you don't want to contaminate the rest of council.
And I think we have to consider that a very real thing. If somebody's, somewhat sick and says, well,
yeah,
not too sick, but I don't know if it's not the beginning of something. Yeah, I actually, Mayor, you've raised some good points. I'm not sure I have.
Why do we have that? Why is there a 2-person limit? Anyways,
I think we're probably all okay with waiving the 2-person limit, but I think the further questions are, if there's more than 3 want to participate electronically, what does that mean? Maybe if that's the case, then we have to switch to a fully electronic meeting. Don't know.
Well, I think
Councillor Jansen, did I cut you off?
No, I mean, it's all good stuff, and I hate to think that Rob has to, discern who's sick and who isn't, and who's absolutely has to show up. Like, Marcy, help me out though. I thought, weren't we trying to be? Isn't there some directive from the province in this regard? Like, is there some mandate we're trying to fulfill here, or is this up to us?
Well, through the chair, currently, we actually don't have the mechanism in place in our procedure bylaw, because this hasn't been adopted yet, to allow full electronic meetings of our regular meetings once the ministerial order's over. So putting this forward, it's a hard one, because that's why there's an extraordinary circumstances included in there for the mayor to make a decision. Because, for example, right now, we're in the middle of COVID. It's been getting more so. We might have some council members that aren't comfortable to come in. And currently the way it is working is that passports are not required to attend council meetings. So we could have unvaccinated people coming and attending a council meeting. And I don't know how all council members will feel about that. And that's just based on this circumstance right now. But that's something that we should be taking into consideration, because some might not feel safe coming in because of that.
So I believe, I think we're trying to resolve a problem where there isn't one, in the sense that we've clearly demonstrated that a fully electronic meeting is completely acceptable and within our capacity. So why would we not just have some language in there that, at the discretion of corporate services or the mayor, that will have a meeting, and it's going to be either electronic or in person or a combination thereof forever? Because I like the fact that, even if I'm traveling for 2 weeks somewhere, I can attend the, and fulfill my responsibility. Like, for instance, when Councillor Parkinson and I choose to go down to Palm Springs for a month, that we can still participate, and that somehow we're not limited because no, there's 2 other council members that are, attending electronically. So I think this needs a complete rework in that section there. And I think we're trying to address a problem where there isn't one. Maybe some language on the back end where, I'm just thinking about the senator that moved to the Cayman Islands and did their responsibilities forever electronically. I mean, so some language to address that. Like, I guess you can't move and then just participate electronically forever. So some kind of limitation, I guess, but I don't know. Tough.
Well, I think
And
given the issue you raised, Councillor Jensen, of being on holiday for 2 weeks and still participating, I think we probably need a limit on the number of margaritas you can have before you can participate.
Wow. No doubt that can get written in there. My concern is, I suspect we'd have to give the public notice if we were going to go to an all electronic meeting. You know, if on the weekend there's a big surge in virus cases and a bunch of us decide we're not comfortable, we've got a notice out there that says we're having a hybrid meeting and come on down to City Hall and make your complaints. And if it becomes a fully electronic, or would it be council's fully electronic and citizens can come to City Hall and make their case there? It gets a little complicated. So I see your concerns, Mayor. I don't have an answer. Marcy, you got your hand up.
Thank you. Through the chair, the intent of this section was for when we're having either a hybrid or an in-person. So the reason behind that is because if we had a meeting and we allowed so many to participate electronically, and say 6 members of council were participating electronically and only the chair was in the council chambers, that could be a bit of an issue for the public that's there in person. So 100% electronic meetings, I don't see any issue with. We just have to have the proper notice as to the time, date, and location. As long as we advise of that, it shouldn't be an issue if we needed to go electronic. But that wouldn't be something over the weekend that, you know, perhaps we determine that most of council is quite, you know, they're ill and maybe they can't attend the council meeting. So that would be a circumstance that might change that. So the intent behind this was just because this is a hybrid, so it would be half in person, half electronic. And so what would your public see that are at the council chambers? How many members would they see, and would they be addressing? Yes, they'll be up on the screen, but that's why this is more of a council decision on what you see as, you know, you'd like to be there in person or there electronically.
Okay, who's got an answer here?
I feel like this needs time to think about.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest then it gets left as is for now, and we'll have another kick at the can, and again, perhaps with more members and more thoughts. Council, I apologize to staff. I'm sure this is administratively not the best way to proceed, but I think that's what makes sense under the circumstances. So that's number 19, number 25 done. Any other issues? Okay, just while you guys are thinking, number 21, C, the corporate officer shall distribute agenda packages for all meetings by 4:30 on Thursday. I thought we had moved that forward to Wednesday. And also in the same section, deliver agendas to all members, either hard copy, electronic means. Presumably that's as the members desire. If somebody wants it electronically or somebody else wants it, you'll be flexible there. Marcy?
Sorry. Yes. So the reason why we left it as 4:30 is we've been striving to get it out earlier. And we will still continue with that process. We are trying to get out agenda packages by noon on Wednesdays, but sometimes there's circumstances that maybe it pushes it off a little bit. So having that little bit of leeway to be able to have them out no later than 4:30 on Thursday is helpful. You know, a short week, different things come up. So it is in there that that's kind of the drop dead date that it has to be out by at 4:30 on Thursdays, but we will still continue to strive to get them out for noon on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on part 5, numbers 18 through 31? Michael.
Sorry, I think I just heard that the drop dead date for getting agendas out is 4:30 on Thursday. But section D says at the discretion of the corporate officer, minor revisions may be considered no later than 4:30 p.m. on Friday. So can I just clarify, does that mean the agenda would have been sent out, but there may be revisions sent out probably electronically on Friday if necessary? Is that the intent of that?
Thank you through the chair. So if there is a change to the agenda, perhaps, I don't know, a bylaw that needed to be included, we can do that change up till 4:30 without having to do it as approval of the agenda as amended. So we can send that out, and it's only for minor things. And it has happened in the past where, you know, maybe a page of something didn't get copied properly, so we need to revise it and send it out and fix the agenda. Very minor changes. If it was anything substantial, it would have to go under approval of the agenda and be amended.
Okay, thank you on that. And I'm still for 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday. And I'm a bit concerned that if it isn't stated in the bylaw that the target is 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, but there is some means of the mayor or the CAO approving a later time up to 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, then particularly with changes in staff, you can end up permanently stuck at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday. So I'd much rather see the bylaw state the 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday with some mechanism for allowing it to go a further 24 hours if necessary.
Okay. Mayor Martin, Councillor Jansen, any thoughts? Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. I guess I don't disagree with Councillor Baxter. I guess the only thing, again, looking to staff would be something coming out of a committee of the whole and staff having enough time with the turnaround to make sure that it hits it 2 days later. Because we would have the committee of the whole meeting on the Monday night. And then if we wanted to get it onto the next council, they only have Tuesday and up to Wednesday at 4:30 to get it. And so we may be putting staff in a position that they now don't move it to the next week, but move it to 3 weeks from now because they didn't have enough time to do that. So I guess I would look to Mr. Earl to ask, can you get your staff to do the work at a committee meeting and have that turned around within 48 hours to hit the 4:30 Wednesday time versus and would it make a substantial difference by having it Thursday at 4:30? That's my question, Chair.
Thank you. Who wants to handle that one? Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. Staff endeavor to have the package out on Wednesday, and we have been doing such, notwithstanding the Thursday deadline. The Thursday deadline does create kind of legislative capacity for us to go a little bit longer without having to bring an item forward on the following Monday that council hasn't seen and or the public hasn't seen that then needs to get walked onto the agenda. So staff appreciate, notwithstanding attempting to get it out on Wednesday, that we actually have till Thursday. We think that this gives us greater flexibility, and certainly with statutory holidays on Monday, committee moving to Tuesday, Wednesday, the following day, that makes that almost impossible.
Thank you.
I for one can support the bylaw the way it's written. I'm quite happy that I think we've got the majority of our packages on the Wednesday since we asked for that. So I'm happy to leave it that way, but of course it is up the will of the committee. Michael, did you want to speak again on this?
No. It sounds like the will of the committee is to leave it the way it is. So I'm happy to go along with that.
Reading the room, as they say.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on that section? Okay, so because this meeting's dragging on, let's skip part 6 and go right to part 7, council proceedings, numbers 32 through 34. Anybody you got any issues with any of that? Michael, either speak up or lower your hand.
Oh, sorry, because you can't lower hands.
Well, I probably can. I just haven't figured it out yet. So. Any thoughts on agenda, delegations, and notice of motion? Anybody want to tell a joke while we're waiting? I heard a great one an hour ago. Okay, you guys had your chance. Moving on to number 8, proposed bylaws. Any thoughts, comments, concerns? And number 9, public hearings. Dean, Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, back a section to 34, notice of motion. Marcy, the couple that I've done have gone straight to committee first, but it doesn't specify that. Are we splitting hairs or what?
Thank you through the chair. Sorry, Councillor Jensen, if you wouldn't mind repeating.
34A, 7 days notice of motion. Our past practice over this last couple of years have been 7 days in advance of committee, but it doesn't specify this.
No. Would you like it to?
No, I don't care. I just,
Okay.
if that's what we were trying to achieve, that it doesn't spell that out, I'm fine with it the way it is.
Right. It's 7 days in advance of the meeting date. So that's to ensure that we have it properly formatted and on the agenda the way it should be. So it works for us.
Okay.
Okay.
I like that. I like that better. So it gives you don't necessarily have to wait 2 weeks further for the committee meeting.
Thank you. So I think we're at the point now where I would accept a motion to move the recommendation with the understanding that a couple of things we've talked about will get tweaked between now and this hitting council table, and there's a couple of issues to finally resolve at council. Is that what your hand's up for, Councillor Jansen? Don't need a seconder, I don't believe. Any discussion? Those in opposition? Oops, hang tight. Can I just go to Marcy and see if she's trying to tell us what we're doing wrong here? Marcy?
You're doing everything right. What I just wanted to bring attention to was I didn't know if any of you had a chance to look at the policy that was also attached in there for the electronic meetings.
Well, we certainly all did have a chance to look at it, and
Page 59 of the agenda package.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping to get your feedback on that as well.
I was okay with it. Mayor Martin, Councillor Baxter, Councillor Jansen, anything? I'll give you a second here. Dean, you're all right?
I didn't make any notes through there, but I'll have another go at it before council as well. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Martin, Councillor Baxter, you seeing anything?
Looks good to me.
Yeah, as I said, I read it and I just had check marks, so I'm happy. So I think we're good with that one as well. Marcy?
Thank you. And can I ask one further question?
Of course you can.
So we've got a few changes that we're going to be incorporating within the bylaw before it gets presented to council. It is legislated that we provide public notice of the changes to our procedure bylaw, and the advertisement was attached in your package. I just wanted to ensure that this isn't going to change the timeline of when we anticipated having adoption of the bylaw. If it is, I can change that.
Can I ask a question on that? In our package, page 5 of 5, that timeline, consideration of draft committee September 27th, that's where we are.
Correct.
Public notice of intent to change October 13th and October 20th. And bylaw consideration first, second, and third reading was October 12th. So we're doing before we do the public notices?
The public notice has to give advice of when we are going to be adopting the bylaw. And within the criteria, we have to have that in 2 consecutive issues prior to the date of adoption. So those are the dates that it works out. So yes, it would be after first, second, and third reading when the notices go out.
So if somebody saw that, they would have an opportunity to come to council and say, I disagree with this before we go forward.
Correct.
Okay? Thank you.
And just to clarify, my motion does include the attachments, including the policy at all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to give everybody a chance if there's any in opposition to this motion. Seeing none, I declare it passed. And I buried my agenda here. I bet you the next thing is adjournment, is it? Correct me if I'm wrong, Marcy. Okay, you didn't correct me.
You were
Mayor
right.
Martin.
You were right.
Mayor Martin moves adjournment. Any in opposition? We're done. Thanks, everybody. See you in a few hours.
Yeah.